Black Myth Wukong has made its journey to the West and smashes records by selling over $53 million in pre-sales and surpassing over 2.2 million concurrent Steam players in less than a day of its release. On top of the overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam, I think it's safe to say that the woke culture got fucking Wukonged, because despite their best efforts in deterring players from playing the game through their several accusations, monkeys of all genders, shapes, and sizes have rallied together to prove them otherwise. Reject humanity, embrace monkey. For those that can't tell by my enthusiasm, Black Myth Wukong is absolutely contender for Game of the Year. No question. But I'll share my own experiences in the game, and hopefully this provides some clarity to some of you on whether the game is worth your time and hard-earned gold. For those that do not know, because you've been living on the top of Mount Huaguo all these years, Black Myth Wukong is a single-player, third-person action RPG developed and published by Game Science. The game is inspired by the classical Chinese novel Journey to the West and follows a anthropomorphic monkey known as the Destined One, who is in search of the 6 relics across China, which is said to contain the cumulative power of Sun Wukong. The player embarks on a journey through the legend of the mythical Monkey King, battling tough bosses and retrieving Wukong's lost artifacts. The game begins with manageable difficulty, but quickly escalates to challenging levels found in popular Souls-like titles, demanding skill, strategy, and cunning to overcome formidable enemies. Now, there's been a lot of comparisons around this game that it's simply another Souls-like title, and after playing over 40 hours of this game, I can comfortably say that's not entirely true. The game feels and plays more like a Chinese God of War and Jedi Fallen Order than anything else. It does bear some Soulsborne influences, but it doesn't lean too heavily into it. Other than providing the player with a stamina bar, a flask, and the game showcasing larger-than-life boss battles that are difficult, Black Myth Wukong just plays more like the action RPGs that we've come to know, and honestly, it's goddamn refreshing to play something different, regardless how much I love the Souls genre. Now, this is hard to believe, but I am not a fucking expert in Chinese mythology. The story following the protagonist monkey named Destiny in searching for the 6 lost relics said to house Wukong is extremely unique and often quite difficult to follow if you're not really familiar with the novel. After completing the chapter, there is an amazing hand-drawn cartoon that summarizes the chapter and its state of affairs before and after your involvement. What makes this story so unique, oddly enough, is the diverse cast of characters that you come across on your journey. They are so well designed, and you can't help feel but completely immersed in this mythology. Game Science clearly showed their love and dedication and affection in honoring the original source material and staying true to its traditions. Simply put, this is a labor of love from the developers to the Chinese culture, and it does not go unnoticed. Absolutely, without question, this is the most beautifully and graphically accomplished game I have ever played. It's breathtakingly gorgeous, absolutely pure eye candy. The 6 biomes and maps are extremely unique and diverse, ranging from lush forests to swamps to sandy canyons to snowy mountaintops. The game, of course, was developed on Unreal Engine 5, and you could really see this engine being pushed to its potential in how the light reflects, or even small details such as the leaves blowing in the wind. Aside from some random skips now and again, which were rare, the game performs butter smooth. Now, I personally played the game on the PS5 and found that performance mode was the only way to play and enjoy the game. The 60 FPS is completely necessary when playing a game that is this fast-paced and that requires precision, movement, and reaction time. Now, I may be a dumb primate, but I didn't actually notice the difference between quality and performance from a graphical standpoint. The whole speculation from reviewers that the game would perform like shit because they didn't get any review copies on the PS5 were completely unfounded. The music cues and the ambient sounds in the game enhance and provide you a sense of wonder as you journey through these 6 chapters. The music is just so unique and again pays so much homage to Chinese culture. It was absolutely wonderful to listen to. The voice actors also did a very well job in their assigned roles, making sure that each character felt unique and varied. Another major assumption was that this game was simply a boss rush, and although the game boasts an impressive 81 bosses, all which are significantly varied in their looks and movesets, the game does provide the player with enough incentive to explore in between these fights across 6 unique biomes that span over the game's 6-chapter story. Now, I will say I wish there were more sprawling areas of the map, as it can be quite linear, and having more interaction with the map would have been definitely preferred, similar to how God of War puzzles work in changing the map state. There are enemies scattered towards your path and journey to each boss. They are very meticulously placed and certainly add to the atmosphere, which brings the world to life even though the enemies themselves don't seem to add much difficulty. Furthermore, there are secrets and collectibles and items and materials used for crafting, NPCs and quests that reward exploration, however linear it still may be. But if you're looking for a complete open world, this is not it. There's so many hidden crevices in the world that you will miss if you sprint through the game, which can be particularly hard to see because of how it blends to the external boundaries of the map. So you can easily miss side quests and NPCs and even optional bosses if you don't take your time. Now, there is no map in this game, and some people will definitely find that as a negative, but for me, it just made me appreciate and focus more on the surroundings. The main draw of this game, by far, is of course the combat. It is versatile and smooth. The combat is fast, it's fluid, and it flows between dodging enemies' onslaught attacks and countering this with your own moveset. The bag of tricks that Wukong has at his disposal is fun to use, and you will need to use your entire arsenal to emerge the victor on these challenging boss fights, which is honestly just great game design. The combat is definitely weighty and impactful, and there is a lot of customizations in how you can approach each fight. The flow of combat is primarily focused on using your light attacks to build focus points, which are then used to chain combos with your heavy attacks. The level of difficulty is tough, but it is fair, and every mistake is certainly the player's doing. The game's combat revolves around a diverse set of options and resource management. Players can choose from various strategies to defeat their enemies, including summoning spirits to channel special attacks or transforming into defeated bosses, employing skills like invincibility or immobilizing, or even utilizing monkey clones in order to create a diversion. On top of this, players can swap between their staff stances to further add some versatility in how you approach an encounter. For example, pillar stance is ideal for AoE situations or when you are trying to dodge ground-based attacks. Thrust stance is ideal for enemies that are flying or that tend to move around a bit, because you can stagger them from a distance. And smash stance is just ideal to stagger enemies in general. Experimenting with a wide range of assets to determine what works best for different enemies is both incredibly enjoyable and rewarding. The progression system is quite straightforward. By defeating enemies, you gain experience, and for every level, you gain a spark. These sparks are then used on multiple talent trees that focus on foundation, staff stances, spells, and transformations. Your foundation consists of stamina, martial arts, and survival. Your staff stances again consists of smash, pillar, and thrust, which affect how your heavy attacks and combos chain. You can very easily reignite the sparks, which allows you to change your points on the go, allowing for a lot of build diversity at no cost to the player. Relics are obtained at the end of each chapter and act as a passive buff. each relic containing 3 passive buffs that you can choose from. Aside from this, you'll be either finding armor, accessories, and weapons, or crafting them yourself. You can also use materials to brew potions that help you in encounters, as well as modify your flask, or as the game describes it, your gourd. Now, nothing is perfect, and it pains me to provide some suggestions and negatives to this game. However, one major feedback is it's difficult to understand what the game boundaries are. There are invisible walls everywhere, and you just tend not to be aware of them. This is just a drawback, I imagine, in having a game that looks this good. You also tend to get stuck on environments a lot, and the overall jumping can be quite janky. So it's quite surprising that a monkey, to me, doesn't have a more fluid movement, such as climbing over obstacles. Also, just based on the graphical fidelity of the game, it's difficult to discern enemies and objects of interest. The enemy scaling, I think, is off because they just simply weren't difficult. At the time of this recording, there is no HDR. And lastly, FPS was inconsistent at times, although I'm sure that can be patched. So, overall, with exceptional graphics, story, music, gameplay, and design, the game fully deserves the acclaim and accolades it's receiving. The game was clearly a labor of love from the developers, honoring their ancient Chinese traditions, and absolutely draws you in its setting and provides the player with a meaningful experience. The combat and boss encounters are by far the peak of what this game has to offer, and it is a must-play for fans of Souls-like or action games that are eager to test their skills on the next challenge. Simply put, Black Myth Wukong provides players with a refreshing twist in both the gameplay and core experience in a genre that is often too saturated and numerous. That's it, jack-offs!